I go from live to studio, recording beats and then beatbox sounds, to jumping into podcasts and recording audio to visual. All of these projects have me moving from set to studio, studio to set, from one location to another. And for the security of my projects, I rely on the SanDisk Extreme Go USB 3.1 flash drive and the SanDisk Extreme Portable SSD. I highly recommend it for storage for your creative movements.
Killa Sweet 16 streaming across all music platforms now, featuring 16s from Tina Kamau, Orifice Vulgatron, Foreign Beggars, Marga, Bob Villain, Illaman, and Trigger. The sounds of Killa Sweet 16s streaming now.
AG Dentistry. In my line of work, not only does what I do with the mouth get reviewed, it's also my instrument. And it's beyond important to me that my teeth get the professional service they deserve. The AG family provide expert dentistry, whether it's NHS or cosmetic. They're the finest in London. Head over to agdentistry.co.uk for more information on treatments and prices. AG Dentistry. Bob Villain.
We don't care.
We don't care.
Go home.
Out on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, and all streaming platforms.
Go home.
Killa podcast. KillaOfficial.com.
Beatbox created.
Killa.
And we're here to talk about world music and street culture.
Killa podcast.
Trying to get the talk out.
Yeah. Trying to get used to it.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
We set?
Yeah,
Ladies
yeah.
and gentlemen, coming to you live and direct. This is the Killa podcast. This is a special one. This is a Sweet 16 special. And I say special because good friend of mine, Don from Dot, like,
Yeah, man.
and a very and a VIP on the track itself is inside the ride.
Yeah, what's good?
Pav.
Yeah, nice to be here,
The
man.
Foreign Beggars crew, the FBs, live and direct. How are you?
Yeah, lovely, man. I'm all good. Still no other day job, so I'm good, bro. Yeah, lovely. Really good.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, man.
Often, like, especially like the majority of the podcasts, when people come around here, they come in rush hour,
Yeah.
and the first thing they're like is, "Oh, thank fuck, we ain't got to do any of that."
Bro,
you
seriously, man, like, we're lucky to live this life that we lived. You know what I'm saying? It was you know, it's a lot of struggle in the beginning, and it's still like, you know, you have to work hard for it and fight for it. But you know, if you love it, you know, it doesn't feel like a job. You know what I'm saying? It's like it just comes bounding out of yourself. You know what I mean? I still feel inspired. You know what I'm saying? Like shit, I feel like, bruv, when I tell people my age, like when I say my age, I'm like, really? Is that what it is? No, I don't know, man. I still feel young and ready for whatever, you know.
It's like what Rakim says, you know, it's a fountain youth. You know, it's like I swear to God, it's like the music thing keeps you on your toes and keeps you young, keeps you moving.
I mean, obviously it's different generation to generation, our generation, previous generation, but you know what I mean? I think like, yeah, it was definitely a different story for the last generation if you're the same age. Bro, like, I'm not going to lie, I'm 38 years old, you know? When I think of that, I'm like, yo, that's fucking trippy shit, bruv, because, boy, I'm like 24 max, you get me? So, like...
Yeah, you left your age back there. Me too,
you know?
dude.
Except for the white hair and shave that off and I'm good to go, bro.
Yeah,
you
man.
know?
Yeah, they don't look like no midlife crisis going on right here.
No,
This looks, you know, this is the realities of, you know, of MCing at its peak.
Yeah, kind of, I guess, but also at the same time, we live one big fat midlife crisis as artists anyway. So
It's
you know what I'm saying, like,
yeah.
you know, it's different. You know what I mean? Especially with the hip hop as an art form that evolves so, you know, so quickly, and it's also like, you know, it's a youth art form. You know what I'm saying? It's always the kids and it's the young people who like, you know, define what the new sound is, and they're the ones who break the rules and make the rules. And you know what I'm saying? As you're a part of that movement, and then suddenly, before you know it, you know, bang, you're like an older head. Do you know what I mean?
And that's crazy how that comes around so quickly.
Yeah, and it also depends. Like, for certain people, I think there's a lot of people in hip hop who kind of fall in love with a certain section of hip hop, and then that's their shit. And I think they're a bit too over. I mean, like, especially back in our day when people were so purist, you know what I mean? To the point where anything that wasn't hip hop was whack, you know? But I think, like, I mean, I think we're from a slightly different place because, you know what I mean? Like, we both grew up on heavy metal music. I grew up on, you know what I mean? Like, I've moved up, you know, as much as I love hip hop and everything, and it's like a defining, guiding force in my life, as much as that, you know, it was when I heard jungle, when it was drum and bass, which was like, fuck, I need to go to London now.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm
yes,
saying?
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, because I mean, I grew up in Dubai and all of that shit.
Come on.
That's when, between there and here in England and stuff, and when I started rhyming, started rhyming over there. I mean, fortunately, I'd already heard loads of UK artists. Like, I heard Mudfams, and I heard like,
You heard that over there?
yeah. Well, see, the thing is, I was here and I went back
Right.
when I was about 16 years old, but my brothers were still here, so they would still come back and bring me tapes and shit. But before that, you know what I mean, I heard Black Twang, I heard Brotherhood, and you know what I mean, hearing Black Twang and Brotherhood, those two groups for me, I mean, I was into, you know, I've been into hip hop since. I mean, I fell in love with hip hop when I heard fucking NWA, Ice Cube, Two Live Crew. I'm talking like 89, 90. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
And that's with the shit that like just opened my brain to it, and then it was open since then. But then, when I really first heard UK rap music and I was able to, because when I heard it, I was like, oh fuck, you know, this is straight up relatable. It's not like watching a movie, you know what I'm saying? This is like, yo, this is this, and he's talking about this, and you know what I mean, like talking about fucking Camden and stuff like that. So that was when, like, you know, kind of just sunk in my brain, and I heard that stuff before I started spitting, so I never felt the, you know, any kind of like, oh, to rap in any kind of American accent, you know. Like, funnily enough, I used to have an American accent till I was 10 because my mother grew up in California. So as a kid, you know, that's just how my mum sounds.
Yeah,
we used
yeah.
to travel there every year. We were just like little American kids and
That's
stuff.
sick. I didn't know your
So-
mum was American.
Yeah, so I used to have an American accent till I was 10, till I came to school here. So, I mean, I guess in a way, you know what I mean, like at them, you know, early ages, you know, 14, 15, 16, like 16, 17, if I'd, at that point, you know, if hadn't heard any British hip hop and then decided I want to go live in the States,
Yeah.
could have easily had an American accent
right,
naturally.
yeah.
So it's just trippy to think of that shit. So I'm thankful, you know, for the people who showed me that shit when they did. You know what I mean? Arnick, Dark Circle, we went to school together.
Dude,
So
Arnick's the man. I remember that guy. I remember them. Who was it? Arnick and
Hoyka.
Hoyka, yeah, from
Yeah, man.
Hamburg.
Hoyka wasn't even in our school, man. Like, Hoyka just used to come over from Hamburg because they started there, because they were mad into graffiti and rapping from
Big
way
time,
back, you know.
big
So
time, yeah.
Arnick and Hoyka used to come over and just stay in our school because it was a boarding school. So Hoyka just used to come, put the school uniform on, and then Arnick was like, it was trippy because like, Arnick was a scholar, man. He'd never done art in his life till he was 14, but then he started doing art. They made him an art scholar, and he was just a scholar because he was so smart in school. So that, you know, he could get it. And also he was like the top cross country runner as well, so he could, you know, he could just ask anything and the teacher would be like, yes, it's fine, your friend from Germany can come and stay and go to your class with you. So Hoyka used to come, wear the school uniform, nighttime, bang, they'd be out painting, they'd break out of school, go paint.
And he
you
can
know what I'm
run
saying?
too.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's like, Arnick was the guy that kind of set the bar for myself and Para. All three of us went to school together. So he was like, you know, the guy who set the bar very high as to like what's whack and what's not whack, you know what I mean? Which is...
It's interesting you go far as back as that, because like sometimes I think, and I'm sure this works within a certain level of creative like mindset. I'm not, you know, this can happen to anyone, but like, do you often feel like when you're in a situation where the people like that are at your school, and then you start following the flow lines to going to clubs, and you bump into these people, there's a real natural growth in like your progression as an artist that just feels like it was made to be.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think because I was living between there and Dubai, and then like, but Para, who was like, we were literally best friends, and we were in the same year. And after I left, him and Arnick were really close because it was a graffiti thing, and it was a bit of an intense school situation. So when you kind of made those bonds, they really meant a lot to you, you know. So
of course.
And also being removed from it, so it's like they just were able, like, kind of being removed from all of us, being removed from a scene slightly is really important because you can just immerse yourself in the essence of what it really is, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, for example, growing up in Dubai when we were super young, we were into death metal, we were death metal bands, but then because there was no death metal scene for us to go out and chat shit and be a part of this and get involved in politics. It was just like distilled into what is the finesse of this scene. It was just the excellence of the bands and who are the fucking best bands that we love. So that was the standard. So being kind of removed from a scene, it takes away all of that fucking superfluous bullshit.
Exactly.
Which is like why I think Pera's style, Onyx style just fucking flew, off the handle, because there was people setting like, I think, like those days there was people setting the bar for style, people like Nima, people like, Crocs, Elk, Score, those writers there, do you know what I'm saying? And like, so it was just, when we would see that shit, it was like, this is the fucking illest shit. And it wasn't like, there wasn't any surrounding books around it. So
no,
it's just,
because it was they were all outside of any kind of, like you say, bubble of like, they weren't
there was no
complacent.
gas, and also there was like no, people can like, there's a lot of shit in hip hop nowadays where you can just be gassed on the internet, you know what I mean? It's like none of that hype gas. It was just the purity of the art form, which was what was coming through and connecting with us when we were growing up.
That's why some of the most hardcore like artists, and whether it's writers or rappers or bands, they come from outside of the cities.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Way out there, because then they don't get the privy of like, they're in a remote place. They don't get the privy of like having like them scene just down the road or anything. They've got to find and source out the hardcore.
And also, there's too like certain people get too much satisfaction. They're like, you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm already chilling with so and so who's a bad man. They don't need to like work on their shit to get to a certain place. So they're like, it's just like by not having that, kind of having the, being removed from it, it's like, and also kind of just being isolated, you just kind of really, that becomes your main thing, and that becomes the thing that takes you out of whatever environment that you're in, that you're not comfortable with. Because a lot of times, you know what I mean, like, it's, by people who fall in love with those things and they really get immersed, they're in environments that are just like, I'm not necessarily saying, super underprivileged, but also at the same time there's mentally completely depraved places that people are in as well.
There's a different hustle mentality there.
Even certain super religious scenarios or super conservative scenarios, people connect with something and it gets them the fuck out of there and just kind of gives them a life path.
One thing that I've always like admired, because we've worked parallel like many a times in terms of like our career growth, you know what I mean? We've kind of come up together at certain points. And one thing that I've always like kind of admired from the outside is the relentlessness in which you and the boys just kind of take on, I don't know, you work in the ebbs and flows of what a scene's doing. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's weird because it's even funny to say it, because I mean I was born in 1980 and I feel like that year is like the turning point. Do you know what I'm saying? From like the old to the weird and new, do you know what I'm saying? And we're lucky that we grew up in an era which is like we had that pure, analog fucking home phone lifestyle, do you know what I mean? But then at the same time we also had technology. We were there for like, the birth of the internet. We were there for the, for the birth of CDs. We had tapes growing up. We had pages. We had mobile phones. We had, we had fucking mini discs. We had laser discs. We had, we had the 80s. We had the 90s. And then, the way everything changed. But I think kind of as a group, when we started, it was like 2002, 2003. That was probably the early days of the internet. When we first started putting shit out, it was still at the era where if you didn't put a record out on Wax, you didn't exist as a rap group. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, unless you're on Wax, who the fuck are you, kind of thing. And then that kind of gradually changed over the next 5-6 years. But over those years, but you just had to be present, and it was for us to do that technologically. Everything was incremental. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like suddenly now you start a group, you got to do a Instagram, you got to do your personal Instagrams, you got to do your Twitter. You got
no, it's like a steady build, isn't it?
You got to do all of them and start from zero. Whereas them times it was like, oh, okay, MySpace is here. Get a MySpace, start building the MySpace, and it's the social thing. So everybody was connecting, so everybody was there. So it grew naturally and grew quite quickly. Oh, Facebook's here now. I want to do Facebook. So it's like learning how to do those things, understanding no presses, and you don't send your CD to the magazine anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? You get your mailing list together and you email it to them people, and then they write about it like that. Radio pluggers. Okay, you don't go to fucking 1X show with a CD in your hand and chat to so and so and give it to him. You got to send so and so an email. So, all of those things happening incrementally, and then our fan base is all moving over at the same time. enabled us, and just kind of staying on top of shit, you know what I mean? And also that was before the algorithms came out. So it was like, you know, I'd say until like 2012, that was like the fucking heyday for between 2000 and I don't know what, like 8 and 2012
It's
was like the
fire, like-
heyday for like
Yeah.
your Facebook popping off, you know what I'm saying? So we went from, you know what, from 0 to 300,000 fans on our Facebook in a matter of time. And also when you post something, everybody gets to see it.
yeah.
So
That's right.
But that was part of the time that they were setting that up so that everybody moved all of their shit over there, and then they started charging everyone. But you just had, I mean, like that was where you're getting traction from, and you just have to do it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if like for our Instagram, I was just like, it got to the point because I used to do the band, run the label, Dented Records, but then I also distribute loads of other people's records back
You
in the
did Par
day.
Excellent as well, didn't you?
Yeah, Par Excellence came afterwards, but
right.
until 2010, I did Dented Records. We had about 50 releases on the label, and then we also distributed loads of other independent UK record labels. I was even doing Task Force at one point. I was doing fucking Sunny Jim stuff. I was doing, I can't, you know, like just like bare different labels, and it was just like doing all of that was too much. And then that came a point when Pinnacle collapsed.
That's
you know?
right. Oh, yeah.
Pinnacle
Okay.
collapsed. I had about more than 1,000 tracks digitally. I was distributing for other people. I was also at the same time I was helping a lot of these motherfuckers understand how to do strategy and get their shit together. And then also, yeah, I can't even remember what I was saying. So it just got to the point where just like it all imploded. Oh yeah, like that. Like so we they had a whole bunch of records out in the market. Woolworths EUK went under, which sent Pinnacle underneath. And then we had about, 30, 40 grand's worth of like money from that was just like, moving through the label, which just went poosh into the fucking ether. We're independent underground UK fucking rap hip hop kind of thing at a time where nobody was getting any publishing money from fucking records, you know what I'm saying? So that was the main bread and butter. Loads of people's records disappeared because they'd sold them out, and then they went into administration. The money wasn't coming back, and then there was a lot of money that was just kind of into the ether. And then Pinnacle were doing this thing where like, oh, if you want to get your records out, you got to pay 10p a pop to get them out.
Whoa.
So on top of losing all of that money with no intention to pay us back, we had to fucking pay them to get our records back. Fortunately, our label manager is a bad man. And he was like, I love you guys. I'm going to sort you out. He was like, I'll tell you what, yeah. Saturday, 2:30 and 3:30, just be there with a van, run up in there, get your shit, get the fuck out, and then move over to us with a
Start your
I was like,
engine.
all right, cool. So we got the van. Literally just went up there, just loaded up a whole like van full of all the records, zipped out of there. He spoke to the brother, said, these guys are coming, just let them through. Even then, like, there was like thousands of records which had already gone out, which had been paid for, which weren't coming.
Yeah.
We weren't going to get the money back. And then I had to turn around and break the news to all of our, peoples in the hip hop industry who are putting their faith in me and be like, sorry, you're not going to get your dough. Sorry, you're not going to get your dough. Sorry, you're not going to get your dough. So at that point, I was just like, I just need to focus on Foreign Beggars. And that's when, Beggartron came out and Contact and all of
There
that
you go.
shit.
Okay.
But what the story was, what I was saying was like, at that point, like fucking, like if you look at our Instagram numbers, they're kind of low because I was just kind of putting it off for time. I was like, gotta do what up to like another fucking thing, you know what I mean? I was just like,
Because you were still cooking
because we were
from
doing
back there, yeah. I guess,
because we were still doing I think them days we were probably still doing the MySpace, still doing the Facebook, still doing that, doing the label, doing the doing the group, and that, at that point we were touring like motherfuckers. We were doing like about 120 shows a year at that point. So it's like, what am I going to start this fucking Instagram thing now? So I just just deferred it, for a couple of years, and then. Obviously, we missed the point when it was like, oh, everyone's on Instagram, So it was we captured that, when it was like hot. But it's all good. It's still building, and it's still hot now, and it's still building.
Popping,
I was just saying that's like, technologically, that's one thing. And we were also a little bit late digitizing all of our stuff. Like I kind of was just one of those things you put off. You know what I mean? Like, being an independent artist, you need you need to be on top of a lot of things. Like even getting our publishing sorted. We probably sorted our publishing out about 4 years after we should have sorted it out. And in hindsight, I know that's a bag of loot we missed out on. So, but in terms of like coming back to your original question of like how we move between scenes and shit, it's just, I mean, we just. Like for me, like I love hip hop. I make hip hop, and there was a point when we started where me and Dag Nabbit we moved here to start a drum and bass record label, and we moved here to throw raves and be a drum and bass jungle label. But we'd obviously only been making drum and bass for about 2 years, but we've been making hip hop music for about 4 or 5 years. So the hip hop shit was ready to go. So obviously it was like, you know, and at those times, like, you know, like early Kung Fu days, Magna Traction, Deck Effects, when we met you, was like, no, my thing was like, I was literally like, I was trying to get into the drum and bass scene as much as I could as an MC. But them days, it was just fucking lock off, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Circle was tight round that.
So I'd be going to all the open mics, hitting them up, and all the hip hop scene was just like, yo, wicked, embrace. And I knew Arnick, and then, you know, Skinny was one of the first dudes that heard me, and he was just like, yo, bang, sick, bang, you're coming on stage, you're doing this, you're doing that. So he's one of the first dudes who was just like straight recognized, where I was going to bare drum and bass raves, get, you know, on the flyers, and I still had to like fight for my spot, you know what I mean? It was so stush, and it was like, it was a thing at the top, when the people's at the top, they, you know, they were holding on to their thing. If you look at flyers between 98, 99 and 2004, 2005, I bet you're not going to see more than 40 MCs. That's right. 40 max MCs that were on the circuit. Do you know what I'm saying? And in the, like, bruv, there's fucking 40 I could walk down the road and I could play some drum and bass, and I'll play some jungle on the street and 40 MCs will show up. That's how many MCs were in the country at the time. So it was just like, no one was getting through, and I was just like, you know, it's just, all right, cool, I'm going to do this over here. Yeah. And obviously, you know, I still love it, still rave and everything, but I'm not going to fully try and pursue that. It's like, I'm trying to be the next guy to break through, you know? But, you know, we still did end up putting on raves, still ended up MCing besides Shabba, Skibba, Det, here and there, all over the place.
It's weird,
so it's
isn't it,
like,
how
you know,
that comes around, because then what you do is you become individual enough for them to then embrace you.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me. It's like all of a sudden you become so refined at your craft in a genre that you wouldn't have normally put yourself in.
Yeah.
And the next thing they're like, oh, he's doing something different. Oh yeah, let's get him.
Yeah, it was mad. Yeah, it's trippy. I mean, that was a few years later, but what was I saying? And essentially, for me, it was just like, even, you know, in the early days when we started doing our shows, like, we'd still bring bits of jungle into the show. You know what I mean? For me, you know, the essence of being an MC and a rapper, especially in those days, was, you know, if you're gonna be a rapper, then you need to understand how to rap, and you need to understand hip hop, and you need to understand. You know, it was a point where, like,
MC culture.
Yeah, and you know, it was a point where when I was coming up, lyricism was the number one in the fucking game. It doesn't matter how fucking flashy your clothes are or how many bitches you got in your video. Do you know what I'm saying? It was like, so for me, it was like, when I heard, you know, MCs like Aesop Rock, my mind was blown. When I heard MC, you know, that company flow, Funk Crusher Plus for me is like, you
biblical.
know, but at the same time, like, you know, Redman for me is a very inspirational MC. Like, fucking Wood, like 36 Chambers was the biggest album in the fucking world at that time. Do you know what I'm saying?
True,
and that's where, you know, where we come from. But like, so for me to be an MC, like, you really have to be, you know, a rapper, you know, because there was loads of MCs like, oh, what, do you chat hip hop? I'm like, bruv, like, how could you even say that? You know what I mean? But I mean, they're different art forms and everything, and, you know, I mean, I'm talking about those days specifically, but for us as a group, we just do what the fuck we liked, you know what I'm saying? It was like, there was, you know, it was before we came out with Begatron, we started working with Noisier, and then we were kind of going into that electronic place as well. But even if you go as far back as Bukkake Ski Trip, which we recorded in, you know, 2000, like, Asylum Speakers came out in 2003.
That's right, yeah.
Bukkake Ski Trip, we'd done that. It was all done in like 2004, 2005 times. There's tracks that we got on there with Vexed, you know. Vexed is like one of the OG dubstep producers that got signed to Planet Mu before it was even called dubstep. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. So you already had, like, it was all
this
part of the
electronic was
tapestry.
already coming in there. Do you know what I mean? Like, so we were kind of starting to bring it in, and I think it was about after Contact came out is when it kind of, the whole convergence really happened. Do you know what I mean?
Because then came, like you say,
no, I'm tripping actually, because we made Hit That Gash.
Actually, that was one
came
of
out
the ones,
super early, bro.
I remember seeing you perform that at Herbal. I remember you
bro.
downstairs Herbal.
No way.
For real. It was you yeah.
That's old school.
That's old school. That's how far back I remember hearing that tune. Prime Cuts did it, didn't he?
Yeah, he done the remix, and that's the first real dubstep thing that happened for us. So that was about the time when all Forward and everything was popping off, and dubstep was like, yeah, it was fucking trippy, bruv. Like we pressed the wax of that, and it flew, and that's the first thing we did on this is after we stopped pressing wax, put on SD Holdings, and they were like, bang, it's gone, reorder. I was like, what?
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
yeah, so Prime Cuts made that remix, and Scream and Banger started playing it, and it was gone.
Gone clear, yeah.
It was gone. And so then after that, that's the first time we'd done like a proper like, you know, got a remix there's Urban Dub did the remix of Hold On with Mickey Finn, and that came out before that, but that's he approached us and did it, and they did it on their label and everything, which was cool, but it never really twigged to me to like get remixes done. So, but we did that Hit That Gash track, and I did it with Rouge à Lèvres and This Is La Preste in my boy Tom from Excuse My French. He was at a label called Undercover, and he was like, you need to meet these bros. So I flew out to Biarritz, who made that tune. I walked in the door, and they were doing their thing. They were making it's like a deep house rap album, and they rap in French. They're called Rouge à Lèvres. If you haven't heard them, they're fucking sick.
Some for knowledge for you.
Put it on now. It's still exceedingly wavy. And they were doing that, and then they just played some beats, wrote the thing, and then it was a sick tune. But obviously they rap in French, so I wanted to release it in the UK and get some UK rappers on it. Did a version with Double Edge and Kaiser from Terra Firma.
Yeah.
Then I was like, fuck, this is wavy. So then we did another version with Inja and Chester P. Then there was another version with somebody else, and then they done and then Prime Cuts just done the dubstep remix, and then that just kind of started just flying on its own. So we were like, all right, so when we're doing the stuff for the Begatron album, the first thing that we put out was Seven Figure Swagger with Double Edge, and then Bar 9 done a remix of that, and that just fucking flew. And it was just like, oh, this dubstep shit is popping off. So,
Yeah, man.
But
Yeah.
the trippy thing is, at that point, we were already starting to play that stuff in our shows, because we would like we just signed with Asian in France in about 2005. I'd say like 2005, 2006 times, maybe 2006, 2007. And we just started doing loads of shows there. And that was the first time we actually really started, you know, banging out, like there would be sections in the set where we'd be like, all right, cool, we're just going to play mad tunes, you know, and yeah, but it felt a bit weird after a while that, like, actually it was Ebo Metropolis who was saying like, we should really start making some of our own tunes to play in this section, because we're just playing big dubstep bangers of other people's in the set, and we're playing on a huge stage. People come see Foreign Beggars, and then we're doing a section which isn't Foreign Beggars. So we were like, all right, we'll make some dubstep tunes as well to fit in that section.
And how did that fit within the audience? Because the audience that you'd garnered at that point, that there was probably a cross section where there were some people that was just getting into Hit the Gash, and then there was other people that had seen you from like a UK rap.
Bruv, like when we dropped that Hit That Gash tune, it was such a divisive thing, because it was like I just wanted to make a fucking dirty house banger, but like we just released Straight Point Agenda, and Straight Point Agenda is our super most introvert, dark lyricist kind of, this isn't for anybody except for the people who love it shit. And we were so like, you know, from that co-flow school of thought of like MCing art form shit. So to do something like that, which was just garish, stupid, fun kind of jokes, a lot of people were like, oh, what the fuck is this shit? And then, you know, doing Begatron, I think when we did United Colours of Begatron, that album, it was a bit of a departure from us kind of being like, yo, super scientific, you know, lyrical this, and just flexing skills. It was like, all right, these beats bang, let's work with the music a bit more. And I don't, you know, like every time I do a verse, I don't have to be like the ultimate guy on the motherfucking mic, you know what I mean? Like you just let the kind of, you know, just kind of be a bit, lay back a little bit, just be a bit more swaggy, be a bit more playful. You know, you don't have to shout, you can just fucking, just cruise it out. And then we had some electronic bits on there as well. And that was I think a lot of people felt after like Hit That Gash, a few electronic bits coming out. There's a few noisier joints in the album, and the fact that we were kind of, laying off like being the guys for a second.
Being the MCs, now you've got to kind of work towards.
A lot of people were like, oh, Foreign Beggars, you know, like a lot of the like super purist fans that we'd created because we were doing that shit weren't really feeling it. But then, you know, kind of, and then after that, like, after Begatron, what happened after Begatron? Then we done.
Well, then there was a Skrillex moment, right?
Yeah, that was a little bit later. So like, Contact came out in 2009, 2010. And then I think at that point we started doing more and more collabs. We were doing an album. We started doing an album with Alex Perez. Cut Deepens came out. Cut Deepens is one of my favorite tracks that we ever made. I think that's a really important one. That kind of, it's a bit of a headsy one, but it's super sick.
I need to shout out Bank Job at this stage.
Oh
Because
yeah,
that tune,
sick, bro.
that tune, even now, I'm
Yeah.
like, I bump that in the gym.
Yeah,
that's the
sick.
lick.
It's
Is
funny,
that Alex
man.
Perez as well?
No, that's Medicine.
Medicine, that's it.
Yeah, so I was just looking on Spotify, and that's one of our lowest played tunes.
I
you
don't
know?
understand.
Foreign Beggars, Dirty Goods, Medicine,
Ridiculous.
banger. It's
certified.
and it came out on the Harder Day 4 EP
Yeah.
with the Skrillex track on it.
Yeah.
And with the Alex Perez LDN track on it.
That's right.
Track with Mensa.
The whole thing
Bank
was right.
Job,
The whole
and
package
then
was dumb.
Fucking, you know what's tunes on there? The Laser Sword tune, bruv. Do you remember Laser Sword?
Nah.
There was a point where like,
Nah.
it was just like this super kind of pre-glitch hop, post-Dilla kind of weird American kind of, just kind of, I don't know. It's like around the same time when like, you know, like
Like Ivy Lab kind of stuff.
it's kind of like that, but it's a bit more. It was just, I think it was, I think we heard that stuff. It's around the same time Hudson Mohawk was coming out.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically it's Low Limit and what's the homie's name? Oh shit! But anyway, yeah. Sorry, Low Limit and Lando Cal, and yeah. So that shit happened because I had to like Lando Cal was living in Berlin at the same time, and he was part of the same camp as Jimmy Edgar, Machine Drum, and he'd moved out there. He stopped doing the Laser Sword shit because he just wanted to make techno, so he was out there doing that. And yeah, that's when we met, man. And fucking yeah, it's a very special. That's one of my it's another one of my favorite tunes that we've got out there. That's kind of under the radar. And then another one of those, which is even more under the radar, which is one of the sickest pieces of music I think we have in our repertoire, is the Machine Drum remix of What You Go and Do That For, which is Foreign Beggars and King Knut. Yeah. It's a fucking special one. So.
No, listen.
You know what I mean? I don't really big up my tunes.
No,
like,
I'm telling you now. No, because I'm telling you, again,
Yeah.
it's like I've lived vicariously alongside you in my career. So like when to have a chat with you about this sort of stuff, it's like now in hindsight, I can look back on your catalogue like I look back on mine, and there's a warmth of nostalgia involved in it.
Yeah.
So when I can now confidently be like, now that was a banger.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Hats off to that. That was a sick time. That was a sick moment.
Yeah.
Not a lot of artists, not a lot of MCs especially, can surpass, transcend.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? To even have this chat.
Yeah.
Both of us. You know what I mean? It's a mad one.
It's also like, I mean, longevity in the game is an important thing as well. I mean, longevity just fucking, it's not a choice for me. Do you know what I mean? I never thought like,
you're living.
Do you know what I mean? I'm
moving.
like, I'm going to here for a bit and I'm going to go do something else. It's like, it was never that, you know what I mean? Like, it's a bit weird, like life-wise, because, you know, you get the question, I'm like, what are you going to do in your life and what are you doing and this and that. And now you're 38 and you're like, I've been just... You know, I came here when I was 19 to do this shit, and I've just been fucking going and going and going and going and going and going. And I'm here, I'm like, oh shit, you got to think about having a family. You got to think about having babies and shit. And you know what I mean? Like,
Is that peer
not all
pressure? Is that
rappers have
peer
to think
pressure?
about that,
Is that
but
peer pressure, though?
it's not necessarily peer pressure, but it's like, you know, time moves faster as well when you get older. And you know what I'm saying? And it's like, what, am I going to be like 65 still out here? Like,
Right, I've got a theory. I'm going to throw it out
Yeah.
there, all right? There comes a point, because I've had chats like this, even with my pops, right?
Yeah.
My dad would be like, so, you know, there's got to be more to just beatboxing. There's got to be more to just making this music. Can't you be an engineer? Or can't you be a blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I am them things, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm all them things. Like, no one can ever press on me the set skills you have to develop to sustain.
yeah.
And it's like really hard to... I've got 10,000 hours in so many, under so many plates I'm spinning. It's like,
Yeah.
like it's like my job actually is everything
Yeah.
that you're telling me I should be. It's just like, this is my road though.
Yeah. Yeah, no, of course, man.
It's
Definitely.
a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, for real. I mean, I'm not tripping that much because I'm not trying to do anything else. And I know that, like, if I do want to, you know, there's loads of things I have done from, like, booking festivals, throwing shows, doing management, fucking, you know, like there's so many aspects of the industry in terms of coaching, education, whatever. I'm sure there's, you know, I can find, you know, I'm good.
Well, you know that.
But yeah.
Do you feel like, because what I'm getting a gauge of, and I think maybe it's because like we've been more connected over the last year or so. Because for me with the Sweet 16 thing, it's like an opening to like a bigger thing, you know, with a more set plan. And I'm definitely sensing from your guys' sides, there is a real kind of like locking in of what, I don't know, it's like a good cookbook. You've got this thing bubbling now.
Yeah, just, I think there was a point a couple of years ago where I think one of the sickest pieces of advice I got from this guy called the One Shanti, is this other Indian rapper from New York who was around when we were first starting. He was like, once you start releasing records, you need to drop something every 3 months. You have to have something out, otherwise it's just you're just gonna fall by the wayside. But it's like once you put something out, you spend time creating that hype. Once you've created that hype, you need to come with something else. And that was stuck in my mind, so I did that in the beginning. Bang, record, album, fucking single after that, or video. You know what I mean? Like having that in my head and understanding that was what was, I think why we were able to also kind of really create that momentum and grow Foreign Beggars continuously. It was always just compounding on the hype and always dropping something at the right time while it was hot. And there was a point a couple of years ago, I think it was about 2014, where we kind of that was the first time we kind of slowed up off the back of that. You know what I mean? I think we from 2003 to 2002, 2003 to 2014, 2015, we were just fucking going ham. Like literally, in that time we'd done 7 albums, six albums, 4 or 5 mixtapes. Like, hundreds
you did
of...
the Uprising as well.
Yeah.
That was a badass album as well. See, like, that's what I'm saying.
So 2014, so we would do... The Uprising came about because we were supposed to drop the I Am Legion album with Noisia in about 2012, 2013 time. We were actually doing another album with Alex Perez, which was called Par Excellence. That was supposed to be the crew. It was like more of a grime thing. That was going to come out, but then the Noisia album kind of took precedence, so we split it up and dropped bits and bobs around the place. But then the Noisia album was taking time, and we were just didn't really fancy sitting around like not putting records out. So at that point, Mousetrap and Dead Mouse were like, well, do you want to do an EP? So we're like, all right, we started doing an EP, and then they heard the tracks and they were like, you want to do albums? So we're like, all right, fuck it, let's do an album. So got the album ready, and then we dropped the album, and then we dropped the album in 2013, and then the I Am Legion album came out in 2014. Oh, fuck, it was the other way around. I can't even remember, man. Anyway, those 2 albums came out right next to each other, a year apart.
There's some legacy shit going on here, man.
So
Legit legacy shit.
So after we done that shit, and after we done the Skrillex records, which blew up, and the Flux Pavilion ones, which blew up, and then kind of like that whole dubstep scene kind of going from Forward to Brixton Academy to fucking Skrillex, what I mean, like that kind of level of and then because it was so hot at that point and we had such big bangers, we were doing so many shows, but then kind of tailoring our sound more to that kind of a you're doing shows for like we still had a full rap show, but we had a lot more of that going on in the set, and it got to a point where Metropolis was not like he's much more like, for me, I'm much more of a gassy kind of guy, and I'm more like, yeah, fuck it. Oh yeah, boom. Give me a Black Sun Empire tune. Yeah, fuck it. You want to do a tune with Rare? I'm like, if I like your shit, and we can, it doesn't matter the genre. If I genuinely like it and I fuck with it, I'll find a way to do it. What's
Matt's approach to this then?
He's much more like he's much more kind of patient. He's kind of not, he's a bit more mature. He's a bit more poised with how he does things. And a lot of the things that we were doing along the way, especially the things that we would do stuff and then they would blow up, and they weren't necessarily the kind of tracks that he would do, and it's not necessarily the tracks that he would like to have. Looking back on the legacy of his life of who he was. I mean, they're fucking bangers and they do stuff, but he's much more of a deeper poet. Do you know what I'm saying? The way that we write, I'm like super like frantic, ADD, get an idea, run with it, fuck off, come back, write this verse and that verse at the same time. Whereas he's much more like, again, every line is much more considered and much more
More
poised. And
Fairmont approach.
yeah,
sort
so
of.
he's like that with a lot more of his career. Just as generally, if you see us
Yeah.
together, he's much more of a.
Which I might add.
Start,
Big
you
shout out
know.
Metropolis, man.
Yeah,
Like
man.
I remember my man from like he used to come to the Spit Kingdom nights at Herbal.
Yeah.
He was there so regularly. He was a
Yeah.
regular dude, man. He would always be chopping up with us, hanging out, good peoples.
Yeah,
you know?
man. And like for me, like he's one of the first guys, that really fucking blew my mind as an MC who was, kind of coming up at the same time. Who wasn't already in a crew doing their thing, but again, it was like, that appreciation for like Task Force and Company Flow, that kind of shit. Like Sound Bomb in one era, that kind of really kind of locked us in as MCs. But so I was saying, got to the point around 2014 where we were doing a lot of stuff. We were making lots of tunes. Even when we were doing the Uprising, we had like, we got to do this tune with so-and-so, got to do this tune. So we go in the studio we set 2 weeks aside to finish all of the stuff that we'd started, but still there'll be collabs coming in left, right and centre. Be like, oh, we just need to smash this one out. And he was like, it just got a bit too much. And then also he had like went through some personal stuff with his mum passing away, and we just kind of it got to the fucking point where like, he was like, I think I can't do this anymore, I'm gonna leave the group. You know what I mean? It got to the point where it was like, and like I even feel bad afterwards, convincing him like don't leave because it's not listening to what a person's feeling inside, but it's like, and also for me, an understanding like, all right, we've got to this point where like, this shit is so hot now, we could just go bang, 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 and it gets exponential up there as well. But then, if somebody's not into it, you can't force it. And also understanding that, like, I mean, like, we're so close in the way that we're knit. It's like, Foreign Beggars isn't going to be like somebody leaves and, okay, it's still Foreign Beggars.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
like we've got, 12 years history in this thing. So if one person leaves, it's like, it's
something
a
really
serious
to
thing, you know what I mean?
consider,
So like, we kind of slowed down a little bit in that period. So like 2015, I think we put out, or 2000, what is it, 2018 now? Fucking hell. Anyway, so 2014 and 15, we only put out one EP, which was 3 tracks, maybe a couple of collabs here and there, but that was the Modus EP that we done. And then after that, we did the Bits EP a year later, 2 tracks, couple of a remix EP, few collabs here and there, but it just really slowed down. And then for us to do 22 Karma, it was like we both kind of really needed to find ourselves again and reconnect with being rappers, because it got to the point where, we were making so much electronic music and doing this bit for this and this bit for that, when you're writing, you're writing an 8-bar or 16-bar on like a big electronic tune, you don't really necessarily go in bare your soul. Do you know what I mean? When you're making rap music. So we wanted to make another rap album, but also had to figure out the style and sound and how we're doing it. And like, see, the Uprising is a sick album, but out of all of our albums, it's the only one that sounds like a compilation of tracks, because we had to whack it together in like a year. And we got a couple of beats from Kid Knievel, a couple of beats from Alex Perez, we got a track from Knife Party, we got a track from Bear Noise, we got a track from Millions Like Us and Tommy Lee. And it was like, we're just doing the tracks and which ones are the good enough.
Don't just breeze over the Tommy Lee thing. Please. That was just like,
that's trippy, man.
No,
I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that one, man. And then it's like, got a shout out Starkey for sending beats on that album as well, Burns. But then, there was no, it was just me and it was me and Trop in the studio. We were getting these beats flung out from all over the world, and we had to smash that album out like in between touring and in between trying to finish off the I Am Legion album. So it's like we get back, okay, cool, we got to go in the studio, do this tune. So it's sick and it works, and it's kind of cutting edge in terms of the fact that it's still like, okay, we're signing this album to Deadmau5's label, but we're still going to put fucking 140 Alex Perez bits with us just shelling on it. We're going to put on Palm of My Hand, which is just a straight like wonky rap beat. So it was good for us to do that. But, we didn't have a single producer kind of exec, we didn't have a situation where
someone was overseeing
we were in the studio overseeing the whole thing and kind of breaking down elements of production from the whole thing. And it's like, there's no kind of like instrumental skits that work, it wasn't sewn together as like
I get you.
It's more like compilation. Yeah.
But that's a challenge, I think, for anybody in the long game, where you're like I went and did the Them and Us stuff.
Yeah.
which was a whole different side project. Because for me, it was like, I don't think Killa is going to fit into this thing, and I've got my own kind of like creative thing that I want to take somewhere else. You guys did the opposite. You carried and you went through all these different collaborations. Do you think like maybe like those collaborations, and it's not me suggesting that I feel that way, but in hindsight, you could have been like, maybe we could have just lent back on the collaborations to a degree, or was it actually worth it?
There's two sides. There's the collaborations that we've put out on our shit, or the collaborations that we did on other people's stuff.
Yeah.
Which one are you asking about?
Probably more the
stuff on other people's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a couple out there which I feel like maybe we shouldn't. That was not a biggie. And there's a few like, up and coming artists that we didn't even know I've done tracks for. But I was just about trying to like, coming from a place where there was no scene and you need to get recognized and noticed, and there was nobody giving me any blueprint of like, no, you shouldn't do that. For me, it was about growing and getting exposure the whole time. But yeah, I mean, there's probably a few bits and bobs in the pipeline that maybe we shouldn't have done. But they're not even popping into my head right now.
Which is probably which is like, it's fine. Yeah.
It's fine. But also like, there are a few collabs that we have done, which definitely like, people have been all like, oh, this and that. But I think like we were doing them because we liked them at the time, and there's people we wanted to work with, and I still fucking back them, and I'll still play them in the set till this day because they're sick. That people, kind of tripped out about, like for example, like there was a lot of people, like when we started releasing the electronic stuff, like the dubstep bits and bobs in the beginning, like talk about pre-Skrillex times. There were people like, we were just made a tune with Flux Pavilion, and suddenly we're like nominated for best vocalist in the dubstep awards. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like best dubstep group.
You're treading on that kind of ground.
Yeah.
Where it's like, whoa, okay.
I was like, all right, cool. Nominate us. Yeah, that's cool. So we came second place, and then after that tune blew up, loads of people, and then suddenly this whole wave of kids from the States came, like kind of got involved. Like after, so we done the tracks with Skrill, which came out on Mousetrap in the beginning, and then he fucking blew stratosphere. So then loads, we got all of this whole new
you would
wave
have never
of
have
fans,
realised that I guess when you started working with him, it was like he was just another great producer that you're collaborating
kind
with.
of. I mean, he was already Sonny Moore, from first to last.
Of course,
and he was there working with Noisier on an album. It's an album that hasn't come out, like that never came out.
Damn.
There's a Sonny Moore album, right? This is when I met him because I had immigration issues and I had to leave the country for a year, and I was living in Holland with Noisier at Walter's house, and Sonny had just come, and he'd come because he'd written an album and they shelved it. So they were like, all right, for the rest of the budget, you can go to this, just pick some producers that you want to work with. So he came to Europe to meet, I don't know if it's the same Mustard or Mustard Seed or some guy. And then Borgor and Noisier. And basically, like, he linked with Noisier and they just fucking connected like that. It was crazy. He fucked off to meet the other people and just came straight back. And then, so we ended up living in Walter's house for like a month. And the album that they made is fucking mental because it's like how like rock albums have tempo changes and they'll play like 4/4 and they have time signature changes and they'll have breakdowns.
They had that within the tunes.
So they were doing that with electronic music. So there will be like a fucking like Ed Banger style like 4 to the floor electro kind of like sidechain heater that will flip into a dubstep tune for like the chorus. But then he's got his vocals on it and the way he sings, he sings like fucking. Dude, it's amazing, bro. Like
that's insane.
He could do like perfect Michael Jackson impressions. So the way that he writes hooks and the way he was singing on that, it was like how Pendulum do their thing, but it was like Pendulum for a more ADD fucking futurized generation, which is combining Noisier, Ed Banger, and dubstep.
Can you imagine if that just came out,
bruv? It was. I've still got the tunes in my head till this day, bruv. So like. It's fucking mental that it's just sitting there like so like that was going to come out and it was going to come out on Atlantic and then go do its thing, and I actually did a track for that album as well. I featured on I got like a collab on there, but then anyway, so there was like a lot of discrepancy. They couldn't figure out a deal between Joe Oakley's management and and Blood Company's management, and it was just like it just didn't come, it just didn't get done in time, like and then At the same time, Sonny had already started the Skrillex thing. I remember fucking sitting there with him and fucking in the cinema in Groningen, and he had like 2,000 followers on his Twitter. You know, and he was just doing the Skrillex thing. And he's like, I've got this little electro side project I'm doing. And then, bang, they just like, you know, the tunes he was making were good enough, and then Noise had done a couple of remixes, and I'd introduced him when I was there. I was like, oh, you should meet Flux Pavilion. So I introduced him to Flux Pavilion, and I introduced him to Bear Noise as well. And then so Bear Noise and him started working, and then he sent me the tune that Bear Noise has done. Incidentally, one of the dudes from Bear Noise is from Dubai as well, so that's a deeper connect there. And then so he was like, yep, I'm doing this thing. I decided I'm going to put it on Mousetrap, on Dead Mouse's label. So he sent me the tune in Dubai. I recorded it there because I wasn't, I had, you know, my visa shit, so I was there. Ebo was in London, done his bits here, and then that was the Scary Monsters, Nice Sprites, and he dropped that on Mousetrap on Beatport exclusively, I think at the time, and then it just went, because at that time Dead Mouse was like the biggest shit in the world, electronic, you know what I mean? So for him to come out on Dead Mouse's label, on the hottest, you know, kind of electronic music label in the world, he just went. And plus, like, he also came from a background of like, from first to last, he was like, his band was amazing. Then him as a solo artist was, you know, like, he's like such a sought after character. Do you know what I mean? Like, from, you know, from kids as young as like kids who were like 10, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old who are now 14 and 15. He's dropping his shit. So he already had that massive fan base. So that dropped, went stratosphere. And then obviously after that kind of just busted. Like literally after he dropped that in about 2011, 2012, that came out. And then within like 3 months of that coming out, he sold out the whole Mothership tour, which is like between 5,000 and 15,000 person venues, 54 dates across the States, off his fucking Facebook page. You know, so then doing that and then deciding to put other dubstep artists, and then, you know, the sound going that way, and him just busting the door down just suddenly meant the entire of America's youth was into it, which also means that the whole world's youth is now into it. So it was just went from there to there to there, and just fucking blew. And it was mad for us to be a part of that wave, you know, because we were there for the dubstep wave to pop there, and then suddenly for that next new US dubstep wave was fucking
insane.
It's mad, man.
Well,
and that's because it was so trippy, because it's like, I don't even know if that would happen if I didn't get fucking turned away at the border and I had to live in fucking Holland for a year.
Which is insane when you think about the law of average and how that works. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like how far do you go in processing whether your journey is already laid out for you. Do you know what I mean? As an artist, it's a crazy...
Yeah, but I think, no, but you also have to be like, you know, I'm doing this by hook or by fucking crook. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I could have been like, oh, I can't get a visa. I'm going to sit like I'm sitting in my fucking parents' house like a bitch. Or be like, nah, I've got to fucking figure out a way to do this and hustle and get your ass to fucking, you know, at least get your ass to Europe.
approach, man.
You know, of course. So just get your ass to Europe. Like, for example, like if I stayed at my family's house in Dubai, you know, I'd have had to turn down so many shows. So I would have had to fucking fly out from there, and we wouldn't have been able to afford it. So I was like, I need to just go and live in this fucking super shitty wooden room with a hole in it for a hot minute, just so I can keep doing all of these European shows. But at the same time, like, you know, that kind of shit happens, you know?
Absolutely.
Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
mad.
crazy. And to think that really did pop off, like that really took you guys into like, it's set precedence to what's going on now. Like, it's crazy.
I mean, I guess so. I mean, it did open it to a whole lot of new people, but then at the same time, it's like we never set out to be like a fucking, you know, like at that point, you know, if it was, you know, one person or a DJ producer who's like, oh, okay, this shit's popping off, maybe I can either make a new alias or I can just start doing this shit now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, Steve Aoki wasn't always the EDM guy. No, you know what I mean? Like, he was a fucking head back in the day, you know, but then that's the stuff that started popping, bang, go down that route. For us as Foreign Beggars, it's not like, you know, oh, okay, cool. I mean, for us, like, even with, bruv, when fucking Still Getting It came out, right? Still Getting It came out at exactly the same time Bad Man Rhythm was coming out. That tune that went into the charts here. And for us, it was like, okay, cool. So this, that picks our heads, fans off even more. That we've got like a fucking four to the floor housey pop, you know, track coming out. But for us, it was
I forgot about that joint as well. Mate.
But the mad thing is, it's like for other artists, they'll be like, okay, cool, we've got all right, cool, this track's come out now and it's done really well, so we need to follow it up and do another track like that. Like if you look at like Tiny Temper's trajectory in the beginning, you know what I mean? Like, okay, I've got my pass out, then I'm going to do this next thing with the you know what I mean? Like, and that kind of set the precedent for how he took his thing. But for us, it was like, all right, we've got Bad Man Rhythm. All right, fine, we did that tune. We're not doing another fucking tune like that. You know what I mean? It's like, we're going to go and make some other gully weird shit that we want to make.
That's
what we want to make.
That's integrity. That's where that
I
comes
mean,
from.
integrity, or like, I mean, it's weird because like, okay, there's this thing I heard about at the time after we'd done called the M25 circuit. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's like,
well, I think I get an idea, but
basically it's like after you got a pop record that's come out and it's just starting to do well at radio. Like, basically, like when you're starting to get that kind of recognition, you get your agent books you all of these shows around the M25 places like fucking Kingston and Richmond and blah 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 blah.
Home counties.
You know, like all of this kind of shit, and you're gonna go a little bit
Stratford,
further and like it's just like janked up Belushi's life. You know what I mean?
Carpet, sticky floor, Red Bull.
I don't even know, man. But like, you can just pop in, do a PA, get 3, 4, 5 grand off to the next spot. We didn't even go down that route, as I guess like our agent, who was our brethren, never even proposed. I mean, I don't know. Maybe could have been some good money, but we never really. That was never really part of our strategy to suddenly be like, all right, cool, we've done this thing on Ministry now. Okay, what's the follow-up single here? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think maybe we could have. It just depends, man. Because like, okay, that came in at number 7, and then it's so mad, man, how the fucking pop industry works here. Like, because we started doing that tune. Big up Depeche from Ministry of Sound. He was the guy who put us on that one. So we done the track, and he was like, okay, he A&R'd it properly. He was like, oh, change these lyrics a little bit here. Okay, cool. Yeah, just on the chorus, just be like, yeah, say jump, and we're like, and just say jump. And we're like, all right, cool. We just thought that was going to be a little intro bubbler. Turned out to be the hook. And he's like, yep, we got a top 10 record, boys. And I'm like,
and you weren't even joking.
I was like, what the how the fuck do you know we got a top 10 record here? And it's like, it's a cool tune. It bangs in the clubs and everything. But it's like, how do you know there's going to be a top 10 tune? But like, understanding how they work their PR and how much they invest in it and how much money they put into the radio and all of that stuff. So like, like looking into it, like, kind of breaking it down and understanding that, okay, cool, they're going to pay 120, 130, 40 just on the build up PR and promotion to get this thing really out there. And I was like, all right, cool. So when it came to the release week, bang, came in at number 7. Now, because it came in at number 7, got so much rotation, got licensed to 2, 3, 4, 5 compilations, bang, they pretty much made their money back in the first week or 2 of that record coming out. Now, the mad thing is like, I remember that, the DJ Fresh Louder tune. So that tune, they had that one in the bag, and they were like, we've got a number 1. We've got a number 1. I'm like, what are you talking about? You've got a fucking number 1, like, you know what I mean? And this is before our tune had even come out. So when our tune had come out and I saw what it had done, I was like, you lot got a number 1, haven't you? Fucking hell, you've got one. And I was like, that's fucking sick. So I was just like, sitting there waiting for it to come out, bang, like yeah, big up Fresh, the tune's crazy, this, that. Tune comes out, bang, straight to number 1. So they were like, all right, cool, we've got a number 1. This tune's already made its money back, cool, fuck it, whatever, next. And then they put, then the whole backative and the whole company goes behind really pushing that tune to number 1 here. They want to get it number 1 in this country, want to get it charting in the States, want to get it, the machine is kicks in, they want to get, get it synced everywhere, car adverts, all of that shit. So it's like, from they made their, their money back on that, we got onto fucking Now 89 compilation. They were like, all right, cool, that tune, they're not really concerned with it. But I think like if they, in hindsight, maybe if they didn't have that number 1 in the bag, and they came in at number 7 with the tune, and they were like, yo, we need to pump this one, and they start pumping it, and that kind of moves us up way up in the charts for a couple of weeks. While that was happening, I think maybe that, agent would have been like, you know what, you lot need to go and do the M25 circuit now.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it works for us because it's like, I'm not trying to be running around fucking Weatherspoons doing Bad Man Rhythm for people who don't give a fuck anyway. So like, but yeah, it's mad.
This is some crazy knowledge going on. This is the real politics that's going on here. This is extremely deep poly that we're having here. And yeah, I think that tune, I forgot clean about that when you said that. I was like, yeah, of course you did that as well. And it really fell directly at that time. Yeah. Like where Skrillex had just done his thing and then that happened.
Yeah.
And I guess at that point, like you were saying, that was when it was kind of, guys kind of took the
Yeah, it was
foot
just
off the
like
gas a
after
bit.
that, it was we still like there was still a couple of years of just going ham and doing collabs and everything, but it's like it was a bit mad just seeing everywhere. Oh, Foreign Beggars is a dubstep group. It's like not necessarily a dubstep group. In fact, we probably made more other music than dubstep, but because the tracks are so big, everyone's like, oh, that's what you're doing. You know what I mean?
But this is kind of like what's now set a real level playing field, like stuff you're doing with Rag and Bowman, for instance.
Yeah.
It gives you opportunity to do stuff that's out there with a value that, well, we've already gone there before.
Yeah.
With a commercial act. And then it also gives the opportunity, like for Sweet 16s, for instance, to do
Yeah.
something a bit more gully, a bit more gun-ho,
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a good place. I mean, we're fully independent right now. We have our own label, Parex, so we can, if we want to put something out, we can sign it to another label, or we can do it ourselves, or we can do it ourselves in a certain territory and, put it out in other places, which is cool. It's good to have that freedom, but it's also good to have the backative of a label situation. Like if you look at High Focus Records, for example, like, they kind of picked up after our generation of shit stopped, like, after, for example, after Dented Records kind of stopped, they were doing their thing, and then they just started picking up and going. And they've been building up through this new, they built up through the YouTube years when YouTube was fucking becoming massive. And, they got the Facebook and the Instagram, and they got, and all the artists didn't necessarily have a home, so they became the place. But like, signing to a label like that now, I think, gives you another level of support, like a label that's actually,
Brings a
got a
collective
support
attitude to
system,
it. Yeah,
you know what I'm
that's
saying? Like, that's kind of relevant in the world,
Yeah. And there's a lot of acts that I catch heat off of, particularly like with your collaborations, and a lot of them are real up and coming, new. And I hear about them through a lot of what your activity, listening vicariously through what you guys are up to, especially recently. Some mad new talent coming through in the UK.
Like, bruv, right now is the sickest time ever. Like, yeah, I think it's just fucking amazing. Like, I think it's beautiful now that finally that like UK rap industry is so
it's incredible.
It's so strong to the
Crazy.
point where any kid can come out of anywhere and blow without even necessarily needing the fucking machine.
Needing the
Do you know
radio,
what I'm
nothing,
saying?
yeah.
They can blow completely independently through the strength of their music and their social media and their connections, and just how sick they are. There's a lot of gatekeepers and there's a lot of amazing kids that probably aren't getting the shine, that probably need the shine, that are getting blocked as well. But there are people who can just come in and just fuck the game up. Like, look at Mist, for example.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying? Look at
the radios right now. It's like 70%. It's like what France used to be back in the day with rap. It's now like that with UK. Like, you turn it on, it's just
a
UK.
beautiful thing, man. And the fact that, like, an artist like Octavian can come out and within 1 year of him releasing, it's a beautiful, because like back in the day there was like, as a rap artist, even rap artists starting to get recognized, there was like you had to do 10 years time in the underground and everything, before you start getting recognized. And even Foreign Beggars, by the time 2003 it come out, we dropped the silent speakers.
That's right.
I started rapping when I was 16, so that was already 7 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, as a hip hop, you really needed to mature as an artist, whereas now it's like you can develop your shit, get really good, drop your shit, come out between, like, how long ago did Slow Tie start coming out? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
right.
if you're just on point with your game and your music is tight, it's fucking, you can blow off the back of a freestyle. Look at Shogun, that Scottish MC. Do you know what I mean? He came out, freestyle, just fucking duppied it, and bang, you're there in the game. And it's up to you to just, step up and do it. And I think like right now, I think the UK music scene is the hottest music scene and the sickest music scene in the world. I mean, there's a lot of samey shit going on, but at the same time, there's so much interesting gully fuckery happening. You know what I mean? Like look at Blah Records, all the stuff that they're doing. Look at Dark Media, like Sonny Jim. But then look at all the new kids like Octavian. Look at Flohio. Look at Neil Sims. Look at, do you know what I'm saying? And there's there's the OGs all doing their stuff as well. Look at like the fact that Giggs is one of the most important people and spokesperson for rap. Bruv, Cass is dead. Yeah.
Cold.
The fact that Cass is dead is out there now doing what he does, and is one of the most important like voices for the nation.
Yeah, him and Gigs, man, like, oh, hands down.
Bruv, it's so sick, man, and it's like, and
But
people
here's,
have to,
actually, here's a good case in point. It's like the two you're talking about here, the leaders currently standing. They've whittled down their thing to a rich Jew. Do you know what I mean? It's like proper, like, they've got their game plan.
Yeah.
Their brand, they've got everything. You know, they don't deviate. This is what they are. This is what they're doing. And
Yeah.
that is like, that's the order of the day.
yeah, and they don't have to fucking cater. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
back in the day, you know, I think like this is like, you know, like when like, you know, big up Pro Green, big up all the, you know, the first people who started busting through, even Wretch 3-2.
Yeah.
But like when they first started coming out, they couldn't, you know, even though already, you know, Eminem had his shit out for fucking 10 years, you know, like, or any fucking American, like Lil Wayne's already been a staple name, you know what I mean? Like UK artists still had to not dumb their shit down, but, you know,
Put a singing chorus on,
had
sort
to
of
get
thing.
fucking Mr. Hudson on the chorus
There you
so
go,
that
yeah.
he could get on the radio here.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Wretch 3-2 is one of the most important lyricists on the face of the earth.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And is a spokesperson for a fucking, was already a spokesperson for a nation. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, people had to do that. Whereas nowadays, it's not the case anymore. It's like nowadays, they don't even need the fucking radio. Do you know what I'm saying?
They bypass
Why,
that.
you know what I mean? Like the radio is completely begging on the culture now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they held up the culture for so long that it was like, fuck you, like I'm gonna do this myself. Hence how Gigs came out. And then after that, they kind of
Which is
have,
so
have
beautiful.
had to assimilate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's the best.
Yeah, it's fucking amazing, man. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, man. It's fucking like it's punk again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like fuck
Exactly.
off.
Yeah. We're in control, you know. I love that. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, man.
That's what's the most exciting thing right now. That's the hands down. And you know, yeah, it's a good place.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's like, bruv, you got fucking. Look at grime, man. You know, on the world map, you think grime is this new crazy shit that the kids doing. It's like, nah, bruv, you've got 40-year-old grime artists out here. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
who've been doing this shit. You got 43, 44-year-old grime artists who come from the jungle scene who are out here doing this. And you know what I mean? This is like,
And that's
this
insane.
Is like it's like a youth culture movement with that fucking energy, but with real experience. It's fucking
It's exciting,
It's
it's
gang.
fun.
It's gang.
And you got your new shit coming too. You got some side projects bubbling.
Yeah, a couple bits and
We
bobs,
can't
man.
delve too deep into
Yeah,
that.
so I'm just doing my solo shit for the first
it's
time,
a bubbling,
man.
it's a bubbling, yeah.
Yeah, and it's different. Yeah, I'm going to India, and I'll be back, and that's all I'm saying. I'll be back.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And
Yeah,
thank
man.
you so much for passing
Bruv,
through. my
pleasure,
dream.
man. I remember, I've just got to say, man, I remember the first time I saw you on stage. It was at Magna Traction, which I spoke about in the
In the
tune.
verse, yeah. That's right.
And bruv, I literally shat. My jaw was on the floor, bruv. I was like, I remember what you were wearing. That's how fucking much of a fucking injection in my head it was. You know what I'm saying? It was like you were wearing some big fat green cargo pants. You had like the early kind of like hat to the side there, and like some, I don't know, some t-shirt, like some black t-shirt with like some band on it or whatever. It was trippy, man. And then yeah, I remember the way you fucked up the mic that day is the first time I ever heard a beatboxer do that kind of madness. I remember, I think it was even before I saw Rozelle, and yeah, bruv, it was fucking crazy. Like that was the kind of shit, seeing shit like that was the stuff that blew my mind to be like, yeah, this is what you need to do with your life, you know? So seeing you rock a show like that was very influential for me coming up at that age. And like right now I live with Reaps One, I live with Hobbit, I live with Pete Box. I'm taking a lot of these guys on tour as well. I was with Pete Box today, and Pete Box was saying the same shit. He was like, fuck, you're going to see Kela. He's like one of my biggest inspirations. I literally wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for the dude. So,
No, much
yeah,
respect.
man. Yeah, it's a
Much
big
respect
thing,
for
man.
that.
It's a big thing,
Listen,
man.
it's humbling for me, and what's awesome is like doing these podcast thing. It's giving my chance to let the people that I respect talk.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Often that can sometimes feel like it's at the detriment of my own artistry, but I gain so much more by listening, and you know, I take what they're listening
Yeah.
into. So it's been awesome, like having a chat with you about this
No,
shit.
pleasure, man. I hope I haven't rambled on too
Not
much.
at all. Not at all. That's what
Yeah, man.
podcasts are for, man. It's good for the knowledge, good for
Ramble.
the soul. Ladies and gentlemen, says, you know, Sweet 16s is live out here.
Yeah, when's it dropping?
this week.
Tomorrow.
It's like the 9th, so it's
Is
like,
it?
yeah, I'm going to make sure this lands on the 9th too.
Jeez.
It's going to be a
Sick.
VIP. Click.
Big up.
Listen, big
Oi,
up. Big up, Ovi.
thank you for putting me on a fucking tune with Trigger, bro.
I
Come
know,
on.
people's-
Come
I tell
on,
you,
bruv.
Everyone said the same thing. You
Bro,
know?
Trigger's the god. Like
the god.
he's like,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, man.
I know. Everyone's been gassed about that
Bro,
one.
he's one of the biggest reasons why everybody got scared when they listened to jungle music back in the day.
swear to
Do you know what
God.
I'm saying? Yeah.
I remember when we was kids and going into Sankey Soaps, yeah, and you'd just be like there, and then there'd be murmurs like, Trigger's coming. It's like, and I
Yeah,
remember
it's
seeing him at Miami as well,
Yeah.
and getting so much love off him, and I was just like shook, and I was like, that's fucking Trigger. So like, you know, to be speaking to him on the phone about talking verses and stuff, it's like,
It's
like,
deep.
it's
So yeah,
awesome.
safe, man.
Yeah, man.
Big up.
Killa podcast, subscribe. Don't be strangers. Do not sleep. I repeat, do not sleep on my repeat. You know where we're at every week, each week. Stay lucky, man.